and improving our accounts. So it's my pleasure to introduce Nick Bramley from IMPACTUS Group. I think many of you may have been to some of Nick's sessions. It's always engaging and entertaining, but we learn such a lot. So Nick's going to be taking us through our paces today with regards to demonstrating how we can set up a really good LinkedIn profile and continue to improve our profile, and how to use LinkedIn a little bit better. You know, how can we use it better and not waste time on it, but actually use it as a proper tool. We did this session last year. It was really popular, and I learned so much, and my LinkedIn profile's improved a lot, but we're going to rip it apart again today. So I won't take anything personally, Nick, but I'm sure, you know, I'm going to pick up tips, especially for me today, as to how I can continue to improve my profile. So I'll be sending you an attendance form and a feedback form as normal. So I'll put it in the chat later on towards the end of the session. And also I'll be sending you an email form, so don't worry. I'm watching the chat for Nick. So if you don't want to use your camera, or you don't want to unmute yourself or anything, just put stuff in the chat, and I will interrupt Nick very politely and get him to answer questions. So Nick, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you.
No problem. Looking forward to it. Can I ask those who, unless you've got real special reasons not to, could I have your cameras on, please? It does really make it better from my viewpoint to interact and engage and see what we're up to. A couple of people said they don't want to put them on for various reasons. I'm okay with that. But unless you've got, you know, I guess bad hair day, or you're eating your lunch, then let's have a look at who we're dealing with. That's always nice to see. So thank you, most of you, for that. That's really good. So as Lorna said there, we're looking at LinkedIn today. It's not just about your profile. I've called this the power and impact of LinkedIn on your relationships and your career potential. So that's quite a long title, isn't it? And we're going to go through. I'm going to start off with setting the scene for what LinkedIn is about and what it's not about. And then we're going to do quite a lot of screenshot sharing, so I can show you and you can follow kind of the things that you should be looking to do with your profile, with LinkedIn as a search tool, etc. You will get a full copy of the slide deck at the end. If any of you are really quick and really astute and can multitask, and you want to open your own LinkedIn profiles and work on them while we're going through it, you might have to keep pace, but it's up to you if you want to try that. But I won't have to slow down. There's a lot to get through in the session. But I'm going to start by asking the question, what do we think the purpose of LinkedIn is? Okay, who wants to put the hand up? So whether you can either use the reactions button in the bottom with the little hand, or you can put your hand up and just suggest what they think. Yunin Lee, by the way, I can only see you're really close up to your camera. I don't know if you want to. Yeah, that's better. I could see really, you were sort of really close up. That. Thank you, Yunin. Appreciate that. Thank you. So what's the purpose of LinkedIn? What do we think it's about? Hands up. Anyone want to share with me a thought? Stuart Cooper, I'll unmute. If you can unmute for me, Stuart. What do you reckon LinkedIn's about, Stuart?
Is it about telling people how fantastic you are?
No, that's what the pub's for. That's right. The pub's for that, which is fine. It is a little bit about that, but it's about using that wisely. I get why you said that. It's absolutely okay. Who else wants to give me an idea what they think it's about? Anyone? Rebecca Davis. Thank you, Rebecca. Unmute for me, please. And Jamie Koo, by the way, when I'm looking for a volunteer, don't be brushing your hair like that, because I'll be picking on you every time you move your hand. That was a very dangerous place to be, Jamie. I'll come to you in a second. Rebecca, what do you think it's about?
I think it's about keeping in touch with a professional network.
It is.
People you meet in your professional life.
Absolutely. And I'll give you my definition in a second. Jamie, were you offering an insight there, or were you just brushing your hair? I couldn't tell, Jamie. Do you want to unmute and let me know what it was?
I did actually raise my hand. Yeah, I was going to say networking as well.
Excellent. Well, my view is LinkedIn is about two things. One is influence and the other one is relationship building. and it's influencing the people who engage with your profile deliberately or accidentally. And it's really important that that influence is easy to understand. What it isn't, it's not Facebook for business. You know, when people say, oh, it's Facebook for business, those who don't use it very often, oh yeah, LinkedIn, it's Facebook for business. It absolutely isn't. There is a Facebook for business, and that is part of the Facebook offering, but that's a very different place. I call it different strokes for different folks. The reality of it is Facebook is about you on a personal level, and Facebook for business is not aimed at the same type of audience. And it's also not your CV. I don't want to see a profile on LinkedIn that reads like a CV, unless of course you're job hunting, in which case then you might as well think about it on that basis. It's much more than that. Okay. It's also a window to your values. It's a place where you can showcase what you believe in, what you stand for, what you value as an individual, and what you support in terms of your sort of stance or position on things. And in effect, I class it as a place to profile your personal brand. So I'm going to ask you a question. Who thinks they've got a personal brand? Put your hands up if you've got a personal brand. Anyone got a personal brand? Come on. Look at you all, frightened of answering the question.
I've been trying to create one, but I don't think I'm quite there with it yet.
Who said that, Joanne?
Yeah.
Joanne, okay, you're trying to create one, but you're not quite there yet. Can I ask you, Joanne, are you less than 5 years old?
No, but yeah.
Personal brand the minute you're about 5. People have a judgment on whether you like it or not. There's a personal brand attached to us all from a very early age. It develops and evolves, and you can influence it as you get through. So I'm going to ask you, who thinks they haven't got a personal brand then? Put your hands up if you don't think you've got a personal brand. I've just cheated a little bit. So Jade Gilmore, Jade, put your hand up for me. You've unmute for me. Thank you, Jade. Why do you think you haven't got a personal brand, Jade?
I think it's difficult to boil yourself down to like a set of core values, I suppose. Like, I feel like you have a personal side and a professional side, and how do you describe those two things? Okay,
I run a workshop as part of some of the things I do. One is called, it's a 2-part workshop. It's called Personal Brand, Professional Impact. It's doing exactly what you say there. It's looking at you as an individual and how you impact then in the business community that you work in or operate in or aspire to work in. So I'm going to ask you all to write down 3 or 4 maximum, 3 minimum, certainly if you want to stretch to 4, that's okay, of the most common words or phrases that are used to describe you by peers, colleagues, friends, family. 3 or 4 of the most common words or phrases that are used consistently to describe you, okay? I'll give you my 3. Enthusiastic, loud, thinks he's funny, okay? Now, I'm okay. My daughter would absolutely slaughter me for the last one because she says I absolutely am not, and I don't know that I am. But what I'm saying is I'm quite happy to be enthusiastic, quite happy to be loud. Thinks he's funny means I try and build some humor into things that I do. And those are 3 things that are used consistently to describe me by different people in different situations. The 4th one would be filters. I need to be careful with my filters occasionally, which goes with the thinks he's funny bit, I guess. I'd like to be described as professional, but there's all sorts of things. They all go into how people view you. That's all part of your personal brand. Who wants to share? We're not doing a psychology session where you lay on a couch and share with the room, but I would like 2 or 3 volunteers. I'd like a volunteer, and then I'm going to just pick on people if I don't get a volunteer. Who wants to share with me their 3 or 4? Joanne Harrison, you put your hand up. Maha Othman as well, you're next. So we'll go with Joanne first. 3 or 4 descriptions of you.
Okay, so first one, organised, hardworking, kind of happy or smiley, and enthusiastic.
Okay, are you happy with those descriptions?
Yeah, I think that sums me up quite well.
Those are not things you want people to say about you. Those are things, if I spoke to 3 or 4 of your peer group, that they would come out consistently.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. We need to think about harnessing those. That's good. Maha, what were the 3 or 4 that you had that would describe you or get to describe you?
Yeah, actually, it's the same. So I'm hardworking, determined. I never give up. Try, and also pushing people to do their best.
Excellent.
Pushing other people to do their best.
And are you happy with that description of you as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Let's go one more. Samantha Williams, only because you're right in the middle of my screen, Samantha. I drawn to, actually, because you got a window behind you, look like you got a bit of a halo thing going on, so, which is quite nice. Samantha, how would we describe you?
I put down intelligent, reserved, funny, and genuine.
Okay, so your funniness that goes with the reserved bit would mean that you're likely to be funny in company that you enjoy, and rather than be the sort of, the sort of loud, funny, look at me kind of type person. Would that be fair? Yeah?
Yep, yeah.
Okay, and you're happy with those descriptions?
Yep.
All right, now what we're going to think about, why is that important? I'm going to show you why your personal brand is important and how it is made up in terms of, from current. So your personal brand, when it comes to a platform like LinkedIn, is every time someone interacts with you, they're getting a sense of you or a feel for what makes you tick, what makes you different, what makes you interesting. So it starts with the type of content that you associate yourself with. Now, that could be content that you write. I often talk to people about things like content, and they say, oh, I'm not very good at writing content, or I don't have time to write blogs and video articles, and I haven't got time to write posts on LinkedIn. That's absolutely fine. It's also the content that you're associated with. So for example, I've got 3 areas of expertise, but the one I promote on LinkedIn is about sales. I've become a go-to guy for anything to do with sales, particularly business to business sales. So my content on LinkedIn that I write is about sales, that I comment on is usually about sales, that I share from other people is usually about sales, because it's basically saying, this guy, Nick Bramley, every time I see him is associated with a subject that he's clearly knowledgeable or passionate about, etc., etc. So what kind of content do you want to align yourself with or write or influence? What are the values that you have and how do you want to get them across? So talk about what you stand for, ethics and values and, fairness and all the things that go with that. That needs to come across. There's a lady who runs a business called Fortitude Training in Leeds, and I only know of her from what she posts on LinkedIn, and she is probably one of the most honorable sounding people that I can ever wish to come across, because her values shine through in everything that she does in terms of fairness, humility, approachability, fighting causes that are unfair. Love what she posts, and I don't know her, and yet I look and say I'm already getting a sense of her being a very values-driven person. And if I'm looking to work with somebody who's a values-driven person, she'll be very high up the top of my list. Who is your current audience and what kind of audience do you want to attract? That's really important for looking at LinkedIn and saying, so who do I want to read my profile? And when they read it, what do I want them to see? So are you trying to attract businesses? Are you trying to attract fellow students or academics or whatever? So you've got to think about your audience and what would make them interested in what you're writing or converting or whatever. If you've got a brand, which we all have, do you want to make it overt? I don't care if you don't want to achieve anything with your personal brand, but I think sometimes a lot of people hide themselves away when they should be shouting from the rooftops. When you've achieved something significant or you're doing something really effective, it's not the time to hide, and LinkedIn's not the place to be hiding particularly. It's a good opportunity to showcase your talent or skills or successes, etc. The best thing in terms of content is to write things that you're knowledgeable and passionate about. So what is it that makes you tick? What is it that drives you, floats your boat? What is it that makes you sort of passionate and knowledgeable. So I talk about sales. This lady I mentioned from Fortitude Training talks about values and talks about the impact of that. Tone of voice, professional, academic, businesslike, jaunty, relaxed. You choose, because people will judge you based on how they read that. So technical or whatever it might be. I know a couple of people on LinkedIn who are experts in their field, but they are technical experts in a technical field, which means that most of their content is written in that format, and they want that to be the case. How will you best communicate your message to your target audiences? Again, it's more than just LinkedIn. When you come to personal branding, it's more about which channels you want to go through. Do you want to speak at a conference? Do you want to get out there known as an expert or a person of influence? And then who are you and what is your position in the industry or the environment in which you operate? So the ultimate end game for all of this is to get to being a person of interest or thought leader, someone who is really renowned, well-known, or has a growing reputation for being someone of interest and relevance. So how does that sound in terms of the backdrop to what we do? We're doing it for all those reasons. We're doing this session for all those reasons, thinking about how can I elevate my position as someone of impact, someone of relevance? How can I resonate with a target audience? How can I elevate my exposure to an audience I want to expose myself to using LinkedIn as a profile? So before we get into the intricacies of the actual screen shares and the do this and do that and do the other, which I don't, this is the only workshop I ever run where I do loads of screen shares. Normally it's sort of more interactive, but I want to show you what to do. Any thoughts on background? Yes, Lorna.
Nick, we've got a question from Tracy, and she asks what your thoughts are on having a LinkedIn account for the area that you work in rather than a LinkedIn account for your personal account.
Give me an example, Tracy. The area. So Tracy,
so I just think it's quite difficult, or I suppose what you as a person might want to put out on your LinkedIn might not be what your business area, so KTPs in my instance. And I sort of think, I don't know whether you want to disassociate the two, or, I mean, 5 years from now, I might be doing a completely different job, and I don't want them to, it might be a different sort of persona that you want to put across for that role. I don't want to change me as a person because of the job I'm doing. So I was thinking we should have a KTP LinkedIn account for all of our KTP stuff, which has its own persona and puts across all the things that you've just said, rather than using my personal account.
The problem with that is it takes you a long time to build the momentum of followers, connections, activity, group membership, all of the things that impact upon the impact of your LinkedIn piece. If you start again in a couple of years' time because you change something, you start from scratch every time, and that momentum it might take you 2 years to get to the level of followers that you want. You're much better amending developing your personal LinkedIn account to reflect what you're doing at that time.
I don't know if anybody else feels this. I'm not necessarily comfortable using my personal account for work.
What would you use? What would it?
I suppose maybe I'm using it, like you said, more like a Facebook thing. But I like my ex-colleagues who work all over the world. I like sort of putting comments on or responding to their things. But that's maybe totally irrelevant to things I'm doing with the KTP land. But if KTP people or people who I would like to attract are reading it, they might think, oh, why is she doing that? Whereas if it was a solely KTP oriented LinkedIn account, it would be very specific as towards, business development, collaboration and things like that.
That's what a website's for, though, Tracy. A website's to showcase a specific area, for example, of KTP. I still want to decide if I want to get into a relationship with this Tracy Dancer lady I've never met, based on what I see and read and feel about her. You can't extricate you and your personality from your LinkedIn profile. A lot of people get really hung up on, well, LinkedIn's me, and that's nothing to do with work. Well, the reality is the world says it is, unfortunately, because the first thing I'm going to check out when I meet someone or been recommended to speak to someone, I'm going to check out their LinkedIn profile. So it has to have you in it. It has to be your sense of you. And I think if you launch a new profile every time you change something in your role.
No, but that's the point. I wouldn't, because I would always be me, because my job, my location, my area would have a LinkedIn profile that I would manage. And I wouldn't have to change me every time, because there would be one with my job.
You wouldn't be Tracy Dancer, you'd be KTP.
Yes.
People don't buy businesses, they buy individuals, Tracy. People build relationships with people. I don't build relationships with the University of York. I build a relationship with Lorna Warnock. Lorna Warnock's representing the University of York. Anything I read on Lorna's profile about the University of York, I'd expected to meet some certain expectations and standards of what the University of York are about, for example. But I'm looking at Lorna as an individual saying, can we work together? Not can I work with an organisation? And I think that's the difference, is a lot of people get hung up on the fact that LinkedIn's a bit of me and I don't really want to give it out to the world. Well, I'm not on Facebook at all. I mean, I just don't do Facebook, and I chose not to, because that's what I view as something that says, you know, nobody's interested in what my hobbies and my interests and whatever are, but professionally, the platform for my professional image, integrity, relationship, and Nick Bramley as someone of potential interest, it has to be LinkedIn, because there's no other one that can do it for you, Tracy. I can't make you want to do it, but what I'd say to you is, if you do a KTP one, you're going to get a whole heap less engagement, miles more less engagement for KTP than you would do as Tracy Dancer.
Okay, no, that's great. Can I just ask, is it just me, or do other people feel like that?
I think I used to feel like that, but I don't anymore. I mean, I've had a lot of coaching from Nick and other people, but I think in terms of I've swapped roles quite a lot and gone to different, been to different universities and different universities around the world, but people still follow you, and your core interests and passions and values are the same. And that's what attracts people. And
I think that also makes you interesting, Lorna. I think it makes you interesting that the Lorna journey, and where it's a conversation piece. Oh, I used to work there and I didn't realise. So people get hung up on privacy and personal whatever, and it's really about, if you want a window to the world that allows you to present yourself professionally, this is the platform for it. And you might have to just accept the fact that if you present yourself as a business rather than a person, you're going to get very little traction. I've got a business account for my IMPACTUS group business. I've got about 100 people who follow it and connect to me. I've got 6,500 who follow Nick Bramley and connect with me on Nick Bramley. I can't make them follow IMPACTUS. I couldn't give away, well, it's all free anyway, but I couldn't incentivize them to follow IMPACTUS group. They follow Nick Bramley because it's not the platform. People just don't follow them. I'd like to know how to share an achievement without sounding on. Yeah, we're going to cover all that, Florella. We haven't even started on your profile yet, Florella. Don't worry about that. We will cover. And come back to me if I don't cover it in the level that you want me to. Don't worry. And it is about sharing your achievements. It is about having that platform, but it's doing it in a way that doesn't look like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. There is a way of doing it. So let's move on, because I'm going to share with you a load of screen grabs about.
Can I say something before we move? I feel a little bit like Tracy as well in that sense. I have, for example, I'm doing the management of a network, and I don't have a LinkedIn for myself, but I have a LinkedIn for the network. So it's the network that I'm advertising and the activities that are happening within the network.
Right, but you're an individual, Veronica, aren't you?
Of course, yes.
And I'd like to know the people I'm working with in that network potentially. If you've got a well-established, branded, networked sort of profile, then that might be a counter-argument to what I've said. But I find it very difficult to see that people on a platform like LinkedIn will literally connect and engage with a company rather than an individual. It's not designed for that. It genuinely, whilst you can have a company profile, and I've got one, it just does not do the job. It just doesn't. People look at Nick Bramley, not IMPACTUS Group, and it works. That's the same for everyone. It's up to you. I can't make you say if you feel comfortable having a profile or not, but I'm going to show you why you might want to, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the stars of the show, whose profiles are we using? Well, we're using mine, obviously. We're using Lorna's, and we're using Thorin Helgeson, who's a professor of ecology at the university. And she's given us permission, by the way, which is always nice to know, isn't it? I've got permission to use Thorin's profile. And the reason we're using Lorna's is, well, because she's booked me to do this session, and she's had a lot of work done on her profile, and yet there's still things to do, and that's good. And we're using Thorin because she was kind enough to say she's happy enough with certain elements of her profile, but she realizes it's not the real McCoy, and it's not the full deal, really. Now, I can't see the group and the audience now because I'm sharing the screens as I am on full screen basis. So I'm going to start with a few things that we go through. And it starts with first impressions, okay? So first of all, Lorna, lovely picture. Smiley face. That looks like a lady I might want to do business with. You haven't got a stern, you know, this is my sort of grumpy Monday morning look. It's relaxed, it's friendly. You look as though I'd like to do a bit of work with you, okay? What she's also done is, unfortunately, put in what a lot of people do, is use this line underneath your name is your selling point, really. It's the bit that you get an opportunity to go straight out the blocks. Tell me a bit about Lorna. Knowledge exchange, training and partnership officer in the research excellence training team at the University of York. Okay, now that's all well and good, but that doesn't tell me what the impact of the knowledge exchange, training and partnership officer does. So I'm going to show you an example later on. That's a way to sell yourself and position yourself in a way that people go, Lorna Warner, wow, look at it, passionate about developing and improving, you know, PhD students, or partnership programs between academia and university, or something of that nature. So when I land on your profile, I'm giving it 15 seconds. I want to be intrigued. I don't want it to be a job CV role kind of thing. But there's a nice backdrop there. The first thing I see there is partnership. That tells me Lorna's a relationship builder, which is good. She's used the backdrop behind the photograph. If you use LinkedIn as a standard, there's just a little picture of a piece of blue. It's a complete waste of space. So that's really interesting. And she's got over 500 connections. LinkedIn's really strange. It tells you get over 500 connections. It doesn't tell you what the next level is. So Lorna might have 501 connections, or she might have 106,000 connections. What it says there is Lorna's put a bit of work into her LinkedIn because she's got 500 plus connections, which is fine. So far, not bad. I'd like to see the impact piece change slightly better on that, Lorna. What's the impact of your partnerships? What's the impact of your training and your knowledge exchange, potentially? Thorin has done exactly what most people do. He's put a job title in there, Professor Ecology, York, University of York. If I look down on Thorin's profile, it will say to me, the first thing it'll list under a job title is Professor Ecology, University of York. So I just think it's a missed opportunity, potentially, to get someone excited. What does ecology at York University do? What is it that she's passionate about in terms of ecology? So is it to do with, you know, a passion about environmental management or whatever it might be? Because she's put a picture there that showcases, you know, part of an area of her studies, I guess, or whatever. That's quite a nice, easy backdrop. And she's got 355 connections, which says to me, she's putting a bit of work in. She's not quite there at the 500, but she's not either someone who's got 6 connections. You know, she's putting a bit of work into building her profile. It also tells me just below, there's 5 people that I know that Thorin knows, and it will help me to recognize that: Lorna, James Stockdale, and 3 others. If I clicked on that 3 others, it would tell me who they were. So you can start to build an idea of who you're connected to and who they're connected to. Now mine, I've got a great face for radio, but I've got my picture on there, which is fine. And basically, mine doesn't say CEO at IMPACTUS Group, because it's going to say that later on. And it doesn't really mean anything when someone sees it at first. So mine is all about inspiring performance excellence in individuals, teams, and businesses. And I'm also a business podcast host on a weekly podcast. So straight out the blocks, inspiring performance excellence in individuals, teams and businesses. If you're looking at my profile and the first thing you come across is that, and you're looking to inspire performance excellence, you know you're in the right place, not my job title. I've put my branding behind, and I've also got founder plus connections. So there's the only difference between them is how much branding you put on and what you do with that strap line, as I would call it. Now we have a challenge. We have a challenge with Thorin, who's tried but hasn't succeeded in making it easy for me to connect with her if I want to do some work with Thorin. So let's say I'm looking for a piece of work on ecology, and let's say I want to get some student body involved in a particular piece of work for my business. All Thorin's given me is her LinkedIn profile address, which I already know because I'm already on it, and she's given me a work email address. That's fine. She might choose to only be approached by email, and that's absolutely fine, by the way. It's her choice, but it's not enough for me to think I might just pick up the phone and speak to Thorin. Oh, hang on, I have to send an email, right? Okay, no problem. Will I get round to sending the email? I don't know. So it's not as easy as it could be. Lorna's has got a profile address, which is always in there anyway. It's got a website for the work that she's doing, which allows me to look at more information straight out the blocks. I can click through there and have a look at what research and training and partnership building she's doing. But it's also put on there, lorna.warnock@york.ac.uk, but no phone number. Can I ask you, Lorna, to unmute for me? I can't see you because I've got the full screen on. Is it deliberate you don't have your phone number on? You don't want people ringing you randomly? And it's okay if that's the answer?
Yeah, I did have my phone number on, but I did get an awful lot of phone calls. So I decided to take it off. And actually, if you go on my email address, my work phone number is on that.
Okay.
If you go, if you did want to be bothered to go through my email,
yeah,
my work phone number's on that. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. It's a deliberate choice. That's absolutely fine. What you often get is people don't make a deliberate choice, and you end up with a profile address and a Hotmail account, and you think to yourself, well, you've bothered to attract me into your profile, and now you've made it almost impossible for me to connect with you and in a way where I might want to work with you potentially. So, put your work email or your most relevant email address in there. And if you choose to put a phone number on, so for example, this is mine. It's got my website, it's got my phone number, it's got the office address in London, it's got an email address. Oops, go back. If someone looks at my profile and goes, I'm looking for someone who can inspire performance excellence in my team, I don't want them to have to work for it. I want them to go, what's my favoured way of getting in touch with Nick Bramley guy? I'll give him a ring. That's fine. They're not going to send me a postcard either to 2022 Wenlock Street, but they might look at my website and they certainly might send me an email. What I'm saying there is the contact information that you put on is make or break for someone taking an inquiry to the next stage or not. So don't make it hard for them. I totally understand why you might not put your mobile number on there, but make sure at least you've got a work email address and possibly a link to a website where they could find that from the website if they need to. So the first thing we need to think about is making it easy, people to understand you, and then make it easy for you when they get in touch, okay, or when they want to get in touch. So we've gone back here to Lorna, and on here, what we've got is, does this sell Lorna as the lady who's about partnership, relationship building, etc., etc.? And I think it does. I work very closely with postgrad students and research staff. We ensure professional development, leadership, mentoring capabilities. I'm passionate about supporting, valuing and recognising researchers, helping to achieve their employment and development goals and aspirations. That is a fabulous, fabulous paragraph, Lorna Warnock. That's a piece of work you've done since last time. But more importantly, I'm now going to get a sense of Lorna as an individual, the lady with a nice smiley face. I really enjoy meeting people and building strong links with colleagues from all sectors, forging new opportunities for collaborative research, training and employment. I especially enjoy welcoming external colleagues to the university to contribute to our knowledge exchange training programme and to share their knowledge, advice and passion for their work with our talented research staff. Right, going to come off screen share. Put your hands up if you don't want to work with Lorna based on those 2 paragraphs. 6 people put their hands up there, Lorna. No, they didn't. That is a sense of Lorna Warnock. That's why it's important, Tracy, going back to your personality. That's a sense of Lorna's personality whilst representing the University of York. So it's the individual that is inspiring me with that simple language. But you've worked hard on that, Lorna, haven't you? That wasn't that last time, was it? Unmute for me. Last time it was pretty functional, I seem to remember, wasn't it? Without being too much.
It was very academic.
Yeah. No sense of you. So I think that sells the idea. I think I've looked at your profile. I've seen partnerships. I like the idea. She's got a nice smiley face. But I've read that. I'm thinking, yeah, I want to know more. I'll potentially want to do some more. Potentially want to work with this Lorna Warnock lady who, at the moment, it's my first exposure to her. Now, the problem that Thorin's got is she hasn't even filled in the about section. There's an about us section, on LinkedIn, and it will throw at you when you're doing your profile. It will say add another section, and the one that's missing from Thorin's is about. So it's a big potential to understand Thorin and what makes her tick. And it would sit there right between highlights and activity. It would sit right there on that screen, but it's missing. So when we talk to Thorin about this, and Lorna, she might ask for some feedback and she might want to see the video and stuff. There's an about us section. And in that section, I'd really like to know why Thorin is a professor of ecology. Why ecology? What is it that's in her DNA? What is it that drives her? You used the word a couple of times, passion, didn't you? It's the time to tell people about your passion. So if you haven't got an about us section on your LinkedIn profile, you're missing the chance to be you, not to be you at work, but to be you. What makes you tick? What you're passionate about? What do you enjoy? What do you get a kick out of, for example? So Thorin's got a completely missing section, which is a missing opportunity for her to inspire a potential audience. Now mine is, it's easy to read because it's in bullet point format, but I'd like to class it as jaunty maybe. Thanks for checking out my LinkedIn profile. Hope I can be of some help. I'm easily accessible and here to engage. So straight out the blocks, it's not corporate, it's not to my name, this is what we do, okay? So we've been created to support the UK and global clients who, like us, are passionate about performance improvement and delivering measurable impact. If you scroll down to the bottom of that, it says, why not check out some of the recommendations below? If you feel I can be of some help or value, I can support your ambitions, I'd like to hear from you. Just give it a call on that number for initial chat. Really quite light touch, making it, well, this guy's saying, yeah, thanks for checking me out. He's saying, give us a ring. He's saying, let's explore it. And on that basis, it's a sense of your personality. Laura, would you describe me as informal? Because I think that's how I would describe myself in that respect. I'm quite informal and relaxed, aren't I? Yeah,
you are. Yeah, but still very knowledgeable.
Yeah, and I think
not in an unprofessional way.
Yeah, but I think what I want to do is I want to be accessible to people. I don't want people to think, oh, well, if I give this Nick a ring, it all sounds very corporate. It's basically about saying to people, look, thanks for checking us out. We might want to be able to work together potentially. If you think that's, just give us a bell. Just get in touch with me. And that about section is really about you. It needs to say things like passion, knowledge, experience, interest, what makes you tick. It's that one that says, this is me as an individual, and this is what you're going to get if you get into a potential ongoing collaboration or relationship or whatever it might be on that basis. I've expanded mine further in terms of bullet points and plenty of white space. And again, that needs changing. I just haven't had time to do it. It's not as current as it needs to be. And what's the thing with LinkedIn is you need to keep going back to it occasionally and read it and go, have I moved on? There's no reference point to there whatsoever in terms of me being king of the webinars, which I think Zoom Ninja's not mentioned, which Zoom Ninja, king of the webinars. you know, since March this year, if anyone's done more webinars than me, I'd like to meet them. But, you know, there's no reference to that on there because I haven't had a chance. Well, actually, I haven't thought about it to go out and change that. And that's not really reflecting where I am professionally. But the other stuff, I would change the jaunty bit, and I might put in there Zoom Ninja, king of the webinars, because it's one of those things that people laugh and go, yeah, you know, Zoom Ninja is a great phrase or whatever it might be. You're trying to make it easy for people to read and understand a little bit about what you are, what you do, what makes you tick. Now, what I'd say with LinkedIn is when you start a profile, it will say +5%, put your work career on, +15%, put your academic career on, +20%, put a picture on. It'll prompt you. You get the points for your profile, whether you fill anything in it or not. So as long as you put something under the heading, so it might say career. If you just put University of York and your job title in there, LinkedIn thinks you've ticked the box. My view is you've missed an opportunity, haven't you? Because it's giving you a chance to promote what you do under each of those headings. You will still achieve what you need to achieve with a good profile by having the headings on there. And I'll show you later when we look at the 3 profiles. There's one that's it's functional but not impactful, if that makes sense.
Nick, we've got a question from Jamie.
Yeah.
So Jamie asks, can you be too informal? So Jamie's got a website and she thinks it's her brand as well, and it's deliberately quite chatty and colloquial. So she says, does she run a risk of being seen as not professional enough?
Not at all. What's the product or service, Jamie? Where's she gone? I can't see her.
I'm here. I don't know. Hello.
Where? Oh yes, sorry, Jamie. Yeah, move around. Sorry, Jamie. Yes. So what's your product or service on the website?
Editing, and I'm hoping to go into PhD coaching or training, like researcher training.
But I think because there's lots of coaching and training out there, if you want to be the accessible one, if you want to be the relaxed, informal but professional one, if you want to be the one that feels like the relationship's going to work because you are not too corporate, then that's exactly the language that you would choose. And if your website is jaunty and you put a link to
that word.
Yeah, jaunty is a good word, is it? Jaunty. If your website's jaunty, the website's deliberately where you want to get business from. Repeat the same process on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Because what I want to do is, if there's thousands of coaches out there, I'm looking for the jaunty one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
That help?
Yeah, it did. I'm just, I've had some people look at it and voice concerns that, such and such in an office is going to look at my profile and not want to engage with me because I sound too informal.
But what you don't want to be, you don't want to be corporate if you're not corporate.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
That's not my audience. Yourself. Yeah. I think you could be jaunty in the about us bit, and then you could be factual, slightly more factual in the description of the business bit. And then the two are combined together then, aren't they, really? Yeah?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. This is just one example. One of my clients, when I used to work with a worldwide group, were a member of an important organisation for their sector, which is called We Connect International. Now, if you're award-winning, or if you're a member of a particular group or a sector or whatever, that needs to be right at the top of that page of your job role piece. We are proud to be active, certified, We Connect International member business. And the reason is that was a leverage point. So I'm going to ask you, are any of you either award-winning, or any of you members of an organisation or a group that's important for the sector that you work in or aspire to work in, or whatever? You could be a member of an institute or whatever it might be. Any of you part of that sort of network yet with anything? No? Okay. If you were, that needs to be quite high up, quite high profile. You don't want people to look for something that's got value. That We Connect International piece had value for that client, so we put it front and center, so we didn't make people look for it. because we drove people to that part of the LinkedIn profile. First thing they see is we're an active member of certified WeConnect International membership. Right, let's read on, let's have the conversation, let's take it to the next stage. Okay, so again, we're going to get to Thorin again, and this is, well, I'd look at this and I'd say, my first impression of Thorin is there's a lot of stability there. 16 years as a professor at the University, 16 years at the University of York. She's been a professor since October, but she's worked at the University of York for 16 years, okay? Now, she was previously studied at the University of Edinburgh, and she got a Bachelor of Science and a Doctor of Philosophy, Conservation Genetics and Native Scots Pine. Okay, right. Now, what I'd say to you here is, I don't think that says enough. In credibility terms, it's excellent headlines. But I'd like to know a bit more about what the role of professor at University of York's about when you're a professor of ecology. I'd like to know what you did in deputy head of department. I'd like to know certainly a bit more about her studies at the University of Edinburgh in terms of, either a Bachelor of Science or whatever. And what I say to people is, particularly if you're younger and you're starting off in your career and you haven't got a lot of sort of work-related credentials, take your degree and break it down. So under the University of Edinburgh Bachelor of Science, I'd like to look at the modules that she studied, because it's filling in something that says to me about Thorin being interesting or relevant or, whatever it might be. But what a missed opportunity she's got. I have no idea what a professor of ecology on a day-to-day basis at the University of York does. So I'm going to ask a question. I'll come off the screen share. Does anyone else know what a professor of ecology at York University does on a day-to-day basis? So we'd only have to guess because we wouldn't know. And it's an opportunity missed, isn't it? Would you accept that? It's an opportunity missed to inspire us with why and what and how on a day-to-day basis, okay? This is the most unprofessional networking thing ever. Look, got a bloody cat. Never had. This cat is 17, deaf as a post, and craves human contact. So if I'm sat on my normal chair, she can't get up on the normal chair, but it gives me what I call Zoom bottom. So I'm sat on the settee, and now she thinks it's fair game. So I'm hopeful that she'll settle down. If not, I'll have to throw her out. Bless her, 17. So she's missed an opportunity there, I believe, in terms of positioning and presenting her credentials in a bit more detail. Then you get the alternative is Lorna. And Lorna has put a lot more detail on there, more sense of Lorna. My main priority was finding new jobs and placements and internships for our undergrad, postgrad students, research assistants and postdoctoral staff. I was engaged in preparing our students and staff in developing competencies, need to be efficient part of their workforce and throughout their professional development. So I know what your employability manager's role looks like, but then you almost ran out of steam there, Lorna, and thought, I don't need to tell you on what the knowledge exchange training and partnership officer does. That piece on the employability manager is perfect. It's technical. Yeah?
Yeah.
So
no, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, and what I get a sense of is everything I'm reading about Lorna is about partnerships, relationships, support, development. I love that. It's very consistent and it's very you. And that's what LinkedIn does in your profile. It gives me a sense that, so if Lorna had never worked with Lorna before and she approached me from scratch and said, Nick, I'd like to potentially work with you on something. I'm checking out her profile. I'm thinking, you know what, Lorna's a collaborator, a partnership builder, a relationship developer, right up my street. Absolutely, why not? It's not all corporate. It's not all academic. It's not all a sense of, this is what the business does. This is what the university does. It's what Lorna does at the university. A sense of you. Really good that, by the way, Lorna. Really, really impressive. But not your job you've had since March 2018. Slightly less impressive on that one. Need a bit of work doing on that one, Lorna, I think. Okay. The next thing is about your credibility. And if you look at this, this is mine, right? Okay. I've got 102 recommendations, but more importantly, or as importantly, I've also given out 82 recommendations to other people. What that means is I'm not a selfish LinkedIn networker. What bothers me about a profile occasionally is I'll see someone who's got 30 recommendations. I go, that's impressive. And they've not given any, or they've given one. And that's really quite selfish, isn't it? It's basically saying, me, write something nice about me, tell everybody about me and how great I am, but I won't tell anybody about the people I work with and how great they are. So my recommendations are people I've collaborated with, partnered with, worked on projects with, suppliers, customers, clients, etc. What does 102 recommendations say to you off the top of your head? If you saw somebody if you were looking at my profile to someone to deliver business development or sales development or whatever, and you scroll down and saw 102 recommendations, what's your first reaction to that? Anyone want to share me what the first reaction would be? Yeah, yes, Tracy.
Yeah, I think you'd be suitably impressed. But I would like to ask about the whole giving of recommendations, because I always feel, and I don't know that there's anything wrong with this, but you're almost giving to receive. It's like, oh, well, if I give this person a recommendation for X, Y, and Z, I'm expecting one back.
Right. Well, I'll talk about the strategy for that. That's exactly the opposite of what it should be, but I understand why it might feel like that. Yeah. I rarely send someone a recommendation and expect one in return. If they do one, that's great, but I won't put it on my profile straight away, because if I send you a recommendation today, Tracy, and then you send me one back tonight and I put it on my profile, that just looks like we've just done that. We've just done you give me one, I'll give you one. So what I'll do, I might just hold yours for a while and then just drop it on, a couple of weeks down the line, because they're just holding a pending folder. What I would say about the art of recommendations is this: get into the habit of thinking about the people that you've worked with, that you've influenced. They could be peer group, they could be supply chain, they could be fellow students, they could be part of the university network or whatever, and ask them, on LinkedIn, I'll show you how to do it in a second, if they wouldn't mind doing a recommendation for enjoying the aspect of working with you. But also, if you're asking someone for one, sometimes you send somebody one without thinking. So this morning, I had a really good experience with someone who was organising a program for me. And I just sent her a LinkedIn recommendation. Absolute pleasure to work with. She's organised this program like clockwork. Everything went like really smoothly, blah, blah, blah. Sent her the LinkedIn recommendation. She was absolutely gobsmacked. Oh, I really appreciate that, Nick. Well, it's only like saying to somebody, thank you. If you've worked with somebody and it's good enough to say thank you for doing a good job, it's probably good enough to write a paragraph on LinkedIn. And it doesn't take a lot to think about it. It's actually a mental strategy to think about it rather than you have to be active rather than reactive to it. But mine there, 102 different connections, different things. A guy phoned me from Cardiff a couple of years ago, and he said to me, "You've been recommended to do some account development training for my sales team." So that's great to know. I said, "Who recommended?" And it was a mutual friend of a friend or whatever. So that's great. He said, "I've checked out your LinkedIn profile." He said, "By God," he said, "a lot of people saying a lot of nice things about you." And I said, "Well, that's good to know." And he'd looked at it. And now my question would be, would he have rung me at all if my profile didn't have any recommendations on? I don't know the answer. We'll never know the answer. But the reality was, it doesn't do you any harm to have some recommendations from people who are saying stuff about what you've done, working together, collaborating, delivering a project, whatever it might be. But get into the habit of sending them off as well. So the easiest way of doing this is click on ask for a recommendation under your recommendations section, and it'll ask you who do you want a recommendation from, and just personalize the little box, because otherwise it just says, "Would you give me a recommendation on LinkedIn?" It's bloody rude, that. Basically, I would say, I'm just building my profile on LinkedIn. I'm just looking to build a few recommendations. It'd be great if you could say a few nice things about that project we just completed. If you feel able to, I'd really appreciate it. It comes in as a message. You click on the link and it says, "Do you want to upload it?" It's dead easy. You don't need loads. I've got 102. I've been on LinkedIn forever. I've got 6,000 connections. Some might argue 102 recommendations from 6,000 connections is pathetic. But actually, I would say to you is I occasionally remember to ask. One of my 82 I've given is to Lorna. So, you know, because I've worked with her a lot and I enjoy the experience of working with Lorna. But good quality, high volume, lots of people saying lots of things about it, which is good, getting the habit.
Sorry, Nick, could I just ask where it is? Because I've got my screen open and I can't see I've found my endorsements, but I can't find the ask for endorsement button. You
haven't got any recommendations because you haven't set any up. So what you have to do is you do it a different way. So you go into the person that you want to get recommendations only works as a section once you either got one or you've sent one.
Oh, so is it different to endorsements?
Yes, it is. Endorsements.
I'm with you.
Endorsements are where someone just clicks on a box that says you're really good at whatever, and there's no. It's not the same as someone writing something about you. It's a bit like someone ticking a box and go, do you know about Microsoft Word? Yeah, tick. You got an endorsement for Microsoft Word. There's no real value in the endorsement side. It was something that LinkedIn tried a while ago and they've almost stopped doing. So every time I'd open Lorna's profile, it would say, is Lorna any good at project management? Is Lorna any good at whatever? And you're ticking the endorsements, but they weren't of any value simply because people didn't have to think about it. So I've got, I'll show you later, I think I've got 99 plus endorsements for loads of things. I don't ever show them. I'm not that bothered about them. But when someone's taking the time to write about them. So, for example, on this one, Helen Niblock, for example, okay, Helen, if I didn't have a recommendation section, but I thought Helen might want to give me a recommendation, I could go and click on Helen and ask for a recommendation on her profile. Or I think I can click on Helen's profile and give a recommendation to Helen. So the minute I've either given or received one, my recommendations box will open up.
Lovely, thank you.
That makes sense, yeah? Okay. But again, Lorna's only got 5. She's given 4. Mine's below Melanie Elyard there. Definitely notice it's a screenshot, so I can't scroll down. What I'd say to you, Lorna, is in your career at University of York, have you only ever done 5 bits of good work?
I hope not.
Yeah, absolutely not. So what you haven't got a strategy of asking people to, you know, say some nice things about you. So what you've got there is a research development officer, you've got a research development manager, you got someone who's currently open to opportunities, Helga, and you've got Melanie, who's an innovation investment specialist, and me, I'm below that. You need to get in the habit of saying to somebody, when you've worked with them on a project, you've delivered something, you just won an award, you said, for enterprise and something or other, yeah?
An enterprise fellowship competition, yeah.
Right. Who was in the team that helped to win that prize?
Via Dynamics, Amanda Silver-Atnam, Karen Clegg, lots of people, yeah. So
you should have said, or could say at the end of that, you know, it's been great working with you. I'm trying to build my profile on LinkedIn. It'd be great if you could write a nice recommendation about the experience of working with me on this award-winning project. Yeah. And then send one back to some of them, and a bit like we said, don't give to get, just pop them in occasionally, and that'll get you up to 10 or 12 or 15 quite quickly. You don't need hundreds, don't get me wrong, but you need some. You know, I think it's almost as bad having none as having 5 after many years you worked at university. It's almost like you've forgotten to ask. You're better than the 5 you're much better than the 5, Laura, is what I'd say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We've got a question from Jamie as well. She says, would it be cheeky to copy a LinkedIn reco and repost it as a testimonial on my personal website?
Jamie,
to get permission.
Jamie, I do that on all of mine. Absolutely, that's exactly what it's for. You don't need permission. They've written it for you, and all I do is I copy it and paste it into my testimonials on my website. And the thing is, on the website, I can change the order. So if I'm talking about consultancy and I'm going to see someone else and it's a big piece of work of consultancy, I'll put all my consultancy testimonials at the top on my website and I'll drive people to that. You can't really move them around on LinkedIn. So yeah, Jamie, totally get that. Scrape, cut, paste, drop them in. No problem at all. Dead easy. But I put there, does this tell the full story of Lorna? Lorna is awesome. You're more awesome than 5 recommendations, Lorna. Ask for a recommendation. Think about the people that you've worked with and just ask them, and just do it in a humble way. you know, I'm building up a profile. I'm not quite there. Be really helpful if you could, you know, I'm looking to get my recommendation levels up. And if I've worked with you on a project, why would I say no to that? Of course I'll write you of course I'll write you one. But I've already written you one, so you can't have two. You can't recommend someone twice. Thorin's got none. So Thorin has just got skills and endorsements. And these are not of particular value. So basically, 10 colleagues at York University have recommended Thorin, and she got 17 for research, 17 for science, and 14 for statistics. These are tick box things. There's not anywhere near as value. So Thorin, another exercise for Thorin, is to think about, you know, these 17 people who she's done research with, would Philip Wookey or would I can't see who else is behind there, would they write her something rather than just tick a box about something?
Yeah.
Because that's, people judge you based on the performance of how other people see you. So, you know, I've put here, I bet Thorin's awesome too, but I might just have to guess. So, you know, Lorna is awesome. I know she is. But again, 5 endorsements, probably 5 recommendations could do with some more. So
we just got a little a point from Hazar as well.
Yeah.
And she points out that not everybody that you work with will have a LinkedIn profile. So it's hard, you know, you can't get recommendations from people without LinkedIn.
What you can say to somebody for the first time is, I know you haven't got a LinkedIn account. Would you set one up so specifically a recommendation? That'd be really valuable. No, if they're not on LinkedIn, you can't have one. I totally get that. I totally understand that. Yeah. But again, so what we've done so far, we've talked about the impact that you present to the world, your profile, your recommendations, your language, your jauntiness. Just to throw that in again, because I know that Jamie likes
that.
Jamie likes the jaunty approach. That's your window to the world. Any questions on that in terms of, or any concerns or any observations on that particular piece? Because what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about how do we use LinkedIn strategically for us. This is about, you've pushed yourself out to the world. We're going to then talk about things like content and all that kind of thing. Any questions or observations so far on this? I apologize, it's a bit screen heavy, but it does, when you get the screens as the slide deck, you just follow the arrows and it'll just take you through. You can go ding, do, and that's why it's done on that basis. So I'm not really a one-way webinar kind of guy really, but you know, in this one, we sort of have to be because of what the content is. So this is about increasing your connection requests, a very simple but effective tool. So when you want to connect with somebody, you personalize the connection. So this one is to Henna Amin, okay? Finance and HR manager at Chiltern Oak Furniture. Now, before I explain what I've written there, one of my clients, PDM International, were making the first UK face shield for COVID that was reusable and authorized to European standards. And that was back in April. And we thought, one of the groups of people who we should be selling the face shields to was retailers. So I reached out to Henna Amin, Finance and HR Manager at Chiltern Oak Furniture. I could have easily put in there, as part of my work with the client, PDM International, as part of the scandal around poor quality, ineffective PPE during COVID, I wanted to connect with you. I hope you can accept and consider this connection or whatever. That's what most people put. I want you to think about putting a link in your connection requests to the place in this world that gives you the most impact. So for this particular one, if you clicked on the link for PDM there, that was a live hyperlink. It's a screenshot, so you can't see that. That took Henna straight through to the face shield landing page of the PDM website. It also puts a little picture thumbnail at the bottom of the message. So what I'm going to say to you is, every time you connect to somebody or send a connection request, can you connect them to a piece of work that elevates? You cannot sell your connection request in 3 paragraphs. You can say, hi, you know, I'm doing some work here. I'd like to connect with you if that's okay. What you can't do is sell that. Why wouldn't you land? So Jamie, I would want you to put a link to your website in there, but specifically, which part of the website, which is the most impressive part? Is it case studies? Is it you know, services? Is it about us? So just make sure you land me in the right place. Some people might have a YouTube channel. Some people might have, no, it's a standard connection request. No, Tracy, you get 3 paragraphs really. I don't know how many characters you get. You can always write 3 paragraphs. The default one says, I'd like to connect you on LinkedIn. Never send the default. The default one basically is, I couldn't be bothered to write anything. Therefore, I've clicked OK. I'm just trying to build some numbers up. So always personalize it, but put a link in. So where's the place you want to land them? Who wants to share me? Jamie's is obvious. She's got a website. Where do you want to land them? On a piece of research, a department that you're working at the university, a white paper document, a YouTube video? Where do you want to land somebody? Where's the most impressive version of you, electronically or digitally? Where would I expect to land? Siki, can you see me?
Yes, hi.
Is there any way you would want to land? Where would I get a sense of you? Is there any way you could land me? Have you got a website or a YouTube channel, or, you know?
YouTube, maybe YouTube or apps.
Yeah.
Or some stream platform.
Okay, so you decide, but make sure you include that link in the connection request, because it might be that that's the bit that I go, oh, that's impressive. I'll accept the connection request. The numbers are massive in terms of conversion rates. They go up by about 80% if you put a link in, because you're giving someone more reason to connect with you rather than just some standard wording that goes, hi, I'd like to connect. I'm doing some work that you might be interested in. Please accept. It's like, should I or shouldn't I? Here's the reason. Click on it, have a look at this, then I'll accept. So put a link in. Think about where's the best version of you. Lorna, where would you land them?
I think at the moment I'd land them on our rep page.
Yeah.
But also we've just done a Women in Research website. So I think probably now, that's only like a recent thing, I probably send them to that, site.
If you're connecting to a woman and you say, I'm doing some work with Women in Research, and can you hear my cat? 17 years old. She's haunted. I'm gonna have to. She stands at the bottom of the stairs and howls up the stairs. Honestly, just if I'm in on my own, it's always when I'm recording a webinar. It's really unprofessional. But I don't want to lock her up. She's 17, bless her. I don't want to put her in a room. Anyway, so I would say I'd love to connect with you, do some work on Women in Research. Click on the link. You put the link in and say, hope you feel like you can accept. If I see the link, I click on the link. I come back. I'm definitely going to accept that connection, aren't I?
Yeah.
Elevating the opportunity. It doesn't have to be a website. It could be part of the university website. It could be departmental website. It could be some research that you've done. It could be a YouTube channel. It could be your TikTok page if you want to. I don't know how you do that, but you know, I'm sure you could. That's my complete reference to popular culture there. That's my one reference to it, which is TikTok. Okay, so Henna Armin, personalize the message, but put a link in. Now, we're going to talk about data. LinkedIn is just one big database, one big information pot. And how do you use it? How do you extract what you want from it that's of value and opportunity for you? So we're going to go through that. Okay. So the first thing I want to think about is I often start with my network. All these buttons along the top, home, my network, jobs, messaging, you just click a button. They stay in the same place all the time. So this one, I click on my network, and what it'll do, it'll say to me, I've got 6,441 connections. I'm in 66 groups and I follow 58 hashtags. So what you might say, well, what I'm doing there is I'm going to use this as a starting point and say 6,441 connections. Okay. Who are they? Where are they? What do they do? So there's one, for example, which is one of my connections, a guy called Matthew Ramsden. And Matthew's someone I know, I've known a long time. And what I want to think about is he also works in a sector that I want to do some more business in. So a couple of things that LinkedIn will do. Matthew's got 500 plus connections. And I could look at his connections occasionally and think, I need to be talking to these people. So when you look at your 6,441 connections, I'm not interested in all of them. I'll selectively, from time to time, pick out the odd one and say, Matthew's an important guy in an important sector for me. How well connected is he? He's very well connected. And I might look at his connections and look and see who I can extend my network with. But also, it throws up on the right-hand side connections of people who look and sound like Matthew. David Dionis is a structural engineer and a BIM coordinator, and Harry Hoodless, that's a good name, isn't it? Harry Hoodless is a board director at Broadway Mayan. Now, if I want to connect with Harry Hoodless or David Dionis, my first reaction would be, I'll send them a connection request. Hi, David, we've got some mutual connections, one of which is Matthew Ramsden. I'd love to connect with you. Here's a reason, some of the work I'm doing in the construction sector with a link to my website. Hope you feel able to connect. So what LinkedIn's very good at is throwing at you opportunities. The right-hand side, it will always say people who looked at Matthew also looked at people like Matthew, like this. And also Matthew's got 500+ connections, and I occasionally might want to look at those. This one's very specific. Going back to PDM with the face shields that we were talking about, we identified very early in the pandemic that the care home sector were very poor relations in the PPE environment in the UK. All the PPE was going, to the NHS and whatever. So we thought care homes were really struggling. So I connected to Gary Abbey from Abbey Care Homes. He's the chief executive of Abbey Care Homes. We were focusing on getting the message out to care homes that you could have a comfortable, reusable face shield that would actually give you protection and would also reduce costs because it can be reused up to 30 times. It was guaranteed to protect rather than some of the things that people were using in the early days. I saw a guy in the early days, he had an Alice band off his daughter and he threaded through some of those punch pocket hole things, the ones that you put papers in. He made a visor, absolutely zero protection whatsoever, thought he was being clever. Now, what we said is, look, you need to protect your staff. Care homes were an absolute disgrace in terms of the protection they were being offered. We have a solution for you. So I connected to Gary Abbey. And then what we're saying there is, look, lots of similar people with lots of similar potential. Sergio Messon, MD of Habitat Care Limited, CEO of Care at Home Group, Chief Executive of Home Instead Senior Care UK, Managing Director of Care Home Services Selectus. So what you can do, if you have a focus on a sector or a group or a proportion of people, connect with one and then look down the right-hand side. If I then clicked on Sergio Messon, it would have taken Sergio to where Gary is on the left-hand side and thrown some more names down there. You can build momentum really, really quickly if you let LinkedIn do the work for you. Here's the key though. LinkedIn is very good with me because I've got 6,400 connections upon which it can run an algorithm and say, out of Nick's 6,400 connections, these are the phrases or words or job titles or locations or geography that look like the ones that are in there. When you've only got a small sample size, at first it might throw you some random stuff on the right-hand side and you'll go, what the hell is that? It's because it's trying to work out who do you want to connect with, who do you want to reach out to, who do you want to greet on LinkedIn. So the more connections you've got, the more accurate that stuff on the right-hand side will be. It very rarely now throws me anything on the right-hand side that I don't understand why it's done it. I might not want to connect with them, but I understand why it's done it because they've got a job title of director, or they're based in London, or I've done some work in, Charlotte in the US recently. So it's throwing people who are based in Charlotte in the US because LinkedIn's seen that as an algorithm and gone, hey, Nick, you're working in Charlotte in the US. Well, I did one piece of work there, but LinkedIn, and if I don't connect with anybody else from Charlotte from the US, it'll stop being on the algorithm. So let LinkedIn do the work for you. Don't dismiss the amount of people I see using LinkedIn who don't look at the stuff down the right-hand side. And that's where the work's being done for you. Why wouldn't you choose LinkedIn to do the work for you? So this is 6,400 odd connections. I always sort them when I'm looking at them in recently added. And the reason for that is because I'm active on LinkedIn, I am probably connecting maybe with 10 people a week, maybe. But over a week when I'm connected on LinkedIn, I've got my job to do, I've got other things I'm working on, etc. I can't remember who I connected with, let alone who I've connected with previously, but let alone, you know, this week. So on this one here, you sort by recently added, which is the default anyway. And it'll say to me, do you remember connecting with the account director at UYR, Philip Tasker? I don't remember connecting with him, but I am having a meeting with him on Friday. So already before Friday, he and I connected on Friday. I do remember connecting with him. I'm not that. I'm going to see him on Friday, and he sent me a connection request, which I accepted quite naturally. But I'm connected to Philip. It might be a conversation piece at the start of the meeting on Friday. Oh, hi Philip, nice to meet you. It was good to connect with you last week or whatever. Also on here is someone who's a finance and HR manager at Chilton Oak Furniture. She connected about the face shields as retailers are starting to think about going back to work. And that might be something I can reach out to her about and say, thanks for connecting with me, Henna. Really appreciate it. And if we can help you with your face shields as you return to work for the Christmas period, then, you know, let me know. So what it does, if you put them in recently added, you can start thinking about, oh yeah, how's it going? Who have I connected with? Are any of them of any value over and above just connecting with them? What do I want to do with them? How do I want to work that group? We've got head of publishing at Fourth Wall Entertainment. Paul came on a workshop of mine at Liverpool University last week. He was just a nice guy. He's based in Liverpool. I've got clients in Liverpool. I'm going to make a note of Paul. So next time I'm actually physically in Liverpool and I'm allowed to be over there, then I might just catch up with Paul and have a beer and a catch up, because he was a good guy. He runs an interesting business. And, you know, it was just an engaging kind of conversation with the chap. So LinkedIn will remind you what you've already done. But it also, and this is a bit I don't want anyone to get upset about or obsessed about, it'll tell you who's looked at your profile in the last 90 days. Well, it'll tell you how many, okay? I don't pay for LinkedIn. If I paid for it, it would tell me who they were. I'm not that bothered. I've never paid for it. 633 people have looked at my profile in the last 90 days. So what? It's up 5% since last week here. So what? I don't care. I'm not bothered. What would bother me on there would be if that was down to 15 or 10 or whatever on a weekly basis. So if it was flatlining along the bottom, that would bother me, because what it would mean would be I'm not doing enough with my content to engage a particular audience. So that number is purely for me to look at and say, is what I'm doing resonating? So 633 people looked at my profile. It's up 5% since last week on a rolling basis. And you can see on this one here, on the 25th of September, I had my highest number on a particular given day. Now, the reason for that is I probably produced a piece of content that went out to a lot of people that was relatively interesting on a particular subject. That's fine. But everything above here is above 25, 30, 35. So what it's saying is on a regular daily, weekly basis, people are looking at my profile. That's all I'm bothered about. Not the numbers and not it's up, it's down or whatever. It's basically saying there are people interacting with my content and my profile, which is fine. It'll tell you who's looked at it recently. If you look at it, your profile regularly, look at this particular piece regularly, you don't have to pay for LinkedIn. So Julie looked at it, Kat Seymour looked at it. It'll tell me 4 people who've looked at my profile. So I don't need to pay for it. If I wanted to pay for it, then it would cost me 60 quid a month. It would tell me who else the other 633 people were. I haven't got time to look at them, so what's the point? So I wouldn't pay for that. So it's important to know that your profile's working, but not to get obsessed with the numbers. It's not Facebook. It's not about the number of likes. It's not about validation. It's more about, well, I'm doing some work on my LinkedIn profile. I'm putting some content out there. Is it getting any traction? It's getting some traction. Job done. Do some more.
Nick, we've got a couple of questions in the chat if you want to
Absolutely, fire away.
Take a look. So Jamie's asking, does it cause any awkwardness or damage to your brand if your connections are from, so number one of her connections is her Malaysian media days. Another connection is international writing, blogging connection, and another of her connections is her academic life. So how do you curate connections effectively, or doesn't it matter?
When it comes to connections, Jamie, you have to have a strategy. Your strategy is either selective and limited or wide open, and no one judges either. I'm wide open. I've got 6,000 odd connections because I'll accept a connection request from anyone who doesn't look like they're a criminal or look like they're trying to sell me recruitment or whatever. So I get connection requests. I look at it and go, yeah, no reason why not. And that's why I've built my numbers up relatively quickly and whatever. So no one's judging me on that. They're not going, oh, I can't believe you connected to him or her, whatever. And I think, Jamie, if you've got a personality that's outside of the academic side of things that you do, connect with anybody, it's absolutely fine. If you are very specific about why you're on LinkedIn and how you want to present yourself, so let's say Thorin was saying she wants to be seen as completely and utterly Thorin, professor of ecology, only connected to the academia environment, that might be her choice. She wouldn't accept connection requests for people outside of that sphere. It would be her choice to do so. There's no right or wrong, it's whatever feels right. My view on accepting connections in volume is you never know who they're connected to. So my 6,000 odd connections are connected to 500,000 people. So if I want to get at 500,000 people potentially, I can do it through LinkedIn. If I put a name of a company in my LinkedIn profile from anywhere, I'm probably one step away from someone who works there or knows somebody who works there, because my 6,000 also know 500,000 or more potentially if there's some big connectors on there as well. There's no right or wrong, Jamie, but I would say whatever feels right for you. But given what you've said so far, go for the numbers, hun. Go for the numbers. Connect with anyone. As long as they don't look criminal or dodgy, whatever. Just go for the numbers, Jamie. Yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah, what was the other question, Laura?
So we've got a question from Tracy about joining groups that sound interesting to you, but I think we're going to go on to joining groups, aren't we?
We'll get there, Tracy. Don't worry. Unless you have to rush off, we'll get there. That's fine. We will get to groups. Groups are interesting for all sorts of reasons. We're going to get to groups shortly.
Thank you.
So far, thank you. Thanks for those. So far, it's about just validating the fact that you've got some interaction with your numbers. So the thing is here, it said to me, Julie Waits, franchise systems development. Why is Julie looking? Can I help her? Well, Julie's a good mate of mine. She looked at my profile. So I wouldn't ring her and go, oh, what are you looking at my profile for? But if someone interesting popped up, has seen my profile, it's a little prompt for me to, I did one the other week. A client I haven't worked with for a couple of years, I looked at my profile, and the easiest way of dealing with that, I just pinged a note and said, hi, Stuart, saw you were checking my LinkedIn profile. Could have been accidental. If there's anything I can help you with, give me a bell. Here's my up-to-date contact details in case you haven't got them. Really friendly, really helpful. He rang me. I did 2 pieces of work for his business last week, and he looked at my profile and I responded to that. I was in control of that, if that makes sense. So LinkedIn can really help you. But a lot of people just see it as it's just a distraction or whatever it might be. Why is Julie looking? If I know why she's looking, I don't need to engage her on that, do I? I'm going to put a cushion down for my cat to sleep. Not with me, go away. Right, there we go. Sleep on that. How professional is that? Right, okay. The next one is content. Now I run a podcast, and I am looking at numbers for podcasts, really, to a certain extent. I want to see that the numbers are okay. This is a podcast I post every week in LinkedIn. Every Tuesday morning, the new podcast has been released. So this one had 2,221 views of the podcast on the first few days of release. I'm happy with that. I don't get obsessed with it. I don't think to myself, oh, it's down on last week or whatever it might be. I'm thinking that's all right. 2,221 people have seen the fact that my podcast has been released this week. It goes from between 1,500 and 3,000, somewhere in the middle. I'm okay with that. Okay. So sometimes it's important to look at the views of the posts that you're producing just to see that they are doing something, that they are resonating with the potential audience. Okay. So that's about data, research, etc. Any questions or observations and that we've been taking as we go along, I guess. But it's a massive database, and it'll throw stuff at you. It'll throw stuff at you that's really helpful, as long as you know where to look. Predominantly down the right-hand side, predominantly around who else is connected to that person, predominantly around who's viewing your profile. Really, really helpful to get you to the next level, to say that's an opportunity worth exploring. Okay, so let's have a look at the next stage, which is the power of search and research. So this is about targeting companies, people and groups. So as I said, LinkedIn's just a big database. But on this box at the top here, you can type anything in that you want to. So I typed in here, just as an example, manufacturing, and you can see next to it, whoops, where's the drop down? I've lost my cursor. There it is. Companies that have got manufacturing in their title. Now, I click enter, and the problem is LinkedIn hasn't done anything apart from just throw randomly at me the manufacturing company who were based in London, Remarketing consumer goods based in Atlanta, Georgia, Zippo Manufacturing Company based in Bradford, Pennsylvania, Goodman Manufacturing in Hockley, Texas. So what I've done there is I've not given LinkedIn enough information to give me a better search. So what you put in is what it will look for. So what you got to think about is they're no good to me. They're too far away. They're not what I was looking for. What can I do about it? So what I can do is I'll put it in the wrong order actually. That was searching for companies. This is searching for people with manufacturing in their title. So this one here is looking and saying Andy Bowen, engineering, manufacturing, commercial based in Coventry, and manufacturing operations director at Morrison's PLC. But what you've got at the top here are filters. So what you can put in LinkedIn, whether you're searching for people, whether you're searching for companies, or you're searching for groups, you can put filters on there. Have I put a page on filters? I didn't put one in, I thought I hadn't. I didn't put in there location, turnover, size, etc. So you can put in there, I'm looking for manufacturing companies in Sheffield, and it click, and it will only bring up anyone who's got manufacturing Sheffield in their title. So use the filters to fine tune your search. I'm going to ask a question of the audience. Who has got a specific sector or group or persons that you think are valuable to you? Who would you like to find on LinkedIn as a group or a sector or whatever, whether it's a group, a sector of businesses, a sector of universities, a sector of individual people. My daughter's got that scarf, Sophie, by the way, really nice. I like that. That's exactly like hers. She wears it just like you. Are you cold as well? You look, yeah, okay. So give us an example of a group of people that you might want to connect with, a group, a sector, or you want to search for. Who's of value to you in your work or your research? Science parks. Anyone go? Let's go. Rebecca. Rebecca Davis, thank you. You put your hand up, Rebecca?
Yeah, so not to do with my academic work research, but my professional life, I might be interested in charities in Manchester, the Northwest.
Excellent. So all you would do, thank you, all you would do, you wouldn't put charities because you wouldn't recognise charities, obviously. You would recognise charity. So you'd put in there, you put in the search bar charity, you'd make that companies. So going back to the previous screen, right, the drop down is people, companies, group. So you make it companies, charity, and the filter you put Manchester under location. You can either do it under location there, or you can put it under filter there. And that would bring up any charity that's based in Manchester that's currently got some profile on LinkedIn. If you want to find people, just leave it on people and it'll tell you, 20 people who work for that organization. The alternatives, put the name of the company in there and just put in Save the Children Manchester. That might be too big, I think, but Save the Children Manchester you can put in there, because what you can search for are people, companies, or groups. So you can search for the company and think, I'm looking to find the finance director of ABC Manufacturing. So I put ABC Manufacturing in the search bar. press send, and it'll list anyone. It'll say 67 people on LinkedIn, and you click on the 67 people on LinkedIn and you find the person who's the finance director. So it's a really powerful search engine to help you to get at, you know, people, groups or companies. So let's look at groups. There are groups for everything, and you've got to decide what you want to do with groups. For me, a group is an opportunity to influence a range of people. I'm a member of 66 groups. They're quite diverse. They're nearly all related to business in some way. So I'm in a lot of groups with CEOs, business growth, Yorkshire Business Networks, all those kind of things. They're all, a lot of them to do with business. So because my podcast is business related, every Tuesday morning, I post on LinkedIn in my main feed, new week's podcast, here's the details, click here, then post it into about 40 of those groups. So I'm generating, you know, out of those 40 groups, lots of people who are going to see that post and think, oh, I might give that podcast a listen. But you can search like anything. So manufacturing Yorkshire, it comes up with loads of groups that are manufacturing Yorkshire professionals in Yorkshire manufacturing, 308 members. This group has been created for professionals and managers and directors in the manufacturing industry within Yorkshire. So if that's you, why not join? But this one here, the FMCG Production Manufacturing Yorkshire Group, has got 3 members. Never, ever, ever join a network with a small handful of members. And the reason for that is somebody had a good idea once and then they've never done anything with it. To get 308 members of professionals in Yorkshire, it's an active group. Someone's doing some work on it. Like Sustainable Low Carbon underneath is 250 members. Magpie People Engineering, 231 members. Food Manufacturing Yorkshire is the guy or lady who set it up and their husband or wife. Not really a group you want to be involved in potentially, but you can search by anything and that can allow you to post in the group. So you click on your professionals in Yorkshire manufacturing, it'll say join this group, and you click join this group and then it'll say to you, okay, off you go, and it'll accept you in. And the last thing you want to think about is what do you want to follow? What interests do you have? So I follow a couple of people. I follow Simon Sinek, who's a guy who's a fabulous kind of TED Talk guy, speaks a lot of stuff around what I do, and I really like his stuff. I follow the Franchise Professionals as a group, and I follow Accenture as a company. But I also follow, I didn't realize I followed Jessica Alba, but I follow her as a business person, not a film. So I think she's a film star. I don't even know. The name rings a bell. I think she's been in films, but she's a founder of the Honest Company. What I'm saying here is, once you've seen something that you like, a group, a company, every one of my clients, every single one of them I follow. So I follow University of York because if they post something, it might be of interest to me because I'm already working with them. I follow, you know, XYZ company because I'm working with them. I follow every client and every people of interest in my network because I want to be told what's happening with them when something's happening with them. Yeah. So let's have a look. So the last few things to think about is understanding the value of your connections. So I'm going to ask you, someone, to tell me a rough idea of how many people you're connected to. Joanne Harrison and Jade Gilborn. Sorry, Jade Gilborn. Joanne, have you got a LinkedIn account? Unmute. We'll do it by.
Yes, I have. Yeah. I think.
Roughly,
can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah. Roughly how many?
483.
Oh, so that's not roughly. That's accurate. 483.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now.
Jade Gilborn, have you got a LinkedIn account?
I do, yes.
How many are you connected to?
My neighbours have decided to drill for some reason.
Okay.
I've got 82 connections.
82, okay. Now, Jade's most likely to know most of those 82 because it's 82. Joanne, you've got no chance of knowing all the way 400 odd. Who's got more than 400 odd connections on LinkedIn? Put your hands if you got more. It's not a competition. Anyone got more than 400 odd? You're setting the standard there, Joanne. Okay. So, Sophie with the nice scarf that my daughter's got, how many connections have you got if you've got a LinkedIn connection? Have you got a LinkedIn account? How many have you got?
I've got 229.
Okay. So again, a biggish number. You won't know who those 229 are. You're connected with them with all good intention. And if I had a quiz with you and went down each one, I say, tell me about them, you'd go, no idea. Oh, I can't remember. Who's that? Don't know. Lorna, you must have more. You've got 500 plus, it says. Do you know how many you've got?
I've got 1,411.
Look at you. Look at you.
Don't know what 11.
I bet you don't know the 1,411 are, though, do you? Look at
No,
I
know who the last one was.
Sarcastic clap there to that one. So what are you joking? Right. Okay.
The last one is as a colleague that has left the university but wanted to get back in touch with me. So
right. Okay. Now, I guarantee you don't know your 1,411 are. I guarantee you don't. Because LinkedIn, you get to a stage where the numbers just, they're just too big. So with the numbers I've got 600,000, I couldn't tell you who's in there. So what I need to do is occasionally I need to export it. You can't see your LinkedIn figures in the round. You can't see them in LinkedIn. You can't see my 6,000 people in LinkedIn. It doesn't have that facility. I need to export them and look at them. So the easiest way of doing that is you click on your network and you click on manage synced and imported contacts. It'll take you to this page here. It'll say you've got 6,400, manage connections, export. It's actually be pointing to export contacts, actually. Export contacts and export connections and imported contacts. Press send and it'll say your archive is ready. It'll just come down the bottom left-hand side. It'll just download. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip. When your data comes out, it comes out in a CSV file, which is a bit like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's not. So immediately you've got your exported data, save it as an Excel spreadsheet. And the reason I say that is you cannot save your work in a CSV. I once saw a guy spend 2 hours on his exported data in a CSV file and not save it, and he lost his 2 hours of work. My cat is driving me insane. Absolutely monstrous noise. So now, when you've exported it, the thing to do then, the way I do it is I sort that spreadsheet by job title, because I think anyone who's got a similar job title has got similar opportunities to engage with me, or have similar challenges I might want to talk about overcoming, or I don't want to work with that particular job title. It's a manager rather than a director, or whatever it might be. So I might have 115 CEOs. I might have 200 training managers. I might have 65 sales directors. So what I'm doing is I'm sorting my connections out into job role so that I can say, right, my 65 sales directors, what's the message I'm going to give them? Because it's going to be very different to the message I'm going to give my 120 training managers. Or I might not send a message to all. I might just say, I'm just going to have a campaign to CEOs. I'm going to create some content and push it out specifically to those CEOs. So exporting your contacts from time to time keeps you up to date in terms of what, who you're connected to, what the value of that is, etc., etc. So the last bit, I've talked about content a few times, is about creating, sharing, repurposing content. So, for example, this podcast I do every week, because I haven't had chance to record any recently, I've run out of new podcasts. I'm recording some now, so every Tuesday we'll have some new ones. This morning, all I did was I posted and said, we've got a new guest list starting next week, fabulous new people coming on board. In the meantime, here's a link to the 3 podcasts I think you should be looking at as you plan 2021. Put 3 little links in, send it out. I've had about 1,000 and odd views of that particular post. So don't think that because you've written content once, you can't repurpose it. Don't think because you've written a blog or an article that you can't take pieces out of it and reshape it, or just give them a snippet or a taster. Content is just about regularly posting something that raises your profile and keeps you connected and engaged with your audience. So this one here, click on start a post. I do it on my phone. There's a little plus button, just says start a post, which is easy. And then what you got to do there is you write the post and put a picture in. So Chris here is started off, he's got a picture with a reflective journaling. How do you learn from a failed sales pitch, call or demo? It happens, it didn't quite go to plan. You click on see more and you can read Chris's post. Now, Chris is someone I'm connected to. He posts very regularly. Chris is building up his profile as a problem-solving kind of guy. He works across a bit of a similar field to me, but not exactly the same. Chris and I complement each other. We compete in a certain way. He's got a bit of a softer side to him than me. Some of his stuff's quite, he's more of a deep thinker than me and a bit softer. Mine's more sort of, he's some tips and practical stuff, and we work very well together. But Chris has created content there. He's had 22 sort of thumbs up, likes, or whatever it might be. He's had 19 comments on there already on that piece that he posted. Now, what Chris needs to do is look at those comments and see, is there anybody in there of real interest or value that I wasn't expecting to comment? Can I engage with them? Has this been my window to that person? So a lot of my connections come through people who've engaged with a piece of content I might have written, and they might have said, oh, really enjoyed that, or great article, or whatever. And I'll just send them a little note going, thanks for your comments. I'd love to connect with you and explore that further. Bang, send them a connection request, and suddenly my numbers keep going up. Or if I speak on an event like this, for example, I'm more than happy. My LinkedIn profile connection details are at the back of the slide deck that Laura will send you. You can click on that on the PDF. It'll take you through to my landing page for my profile. If you want to connect with me, absolutely fine. My numbers go up quite quickly because of the kind of things that I do. But posting content is the route to thought leadership. I guarantee you now that Chris Wilson is trying to build his profile up to be a thoughtful sales professional. And he's getting there because everything he posts is thoughtful, thought-provoking, and to do with sales, because he's posting regularly. But he's also commenting on my posts and commenting on other people's posts that also elevate his positioning. So he's had 22 likes, 19 comments. So content isn't just about what you write, it's also about being active. So this piece of work from Helen Oldham was somebody else's post. Kate Hutchinson, Managing Director of the Secret Event Service, posted something about this pre-launch event for SmartWorks in Burberry. And Helen Oldham says, we've been overwhelmed with support we've had from leads. Thank you. Helen's attached herself to Kate's post because Helen thinks it's worthwhile doing so. If I saw that post and I was working with Kate or Helen, I might click like, or I might write a comment. What a great piece, very inspiring. And again, I'm elevating my work and my position, my activity within the network that I've built as a deliberate approach to my sort of online networking strategy through LinkedIn. So it's not a place to be invisible. It's not really, you can't really watch the world go by on LinkedIn. There's no point. There really isn't a point being on LinkedIn, having a really good profile and not doing anything. But I don't want you to get obsessed with it either. 20 minutes once a day will do it. 20 minutes once a day, have a little flick around, have a little glance around, your feed will come in. I think Helen Oldham, don't know her. I'm going to sneeze, you know when you know you're going to sneeze. I'm really professional today, aren't I? I've got a cat and I've got me. Founding board director, North Invest, founder, non-exec director, advisor, coach. Now, if I wanted to connect with Helen, because she's right in the sweet spot of the types of people I connect to, the easiest way for me to do that is to like her post, comment on her post, and then send her a connection request, because she's seen that a guy called Nick Bramley with my picture has connected, has liked and commented on her post, and then sent me a, hi, Helen, just commented on your post, really inspiring, I'd like to connect. What's the chance of her saying no? There's no chance of her saying no. So the reality is, it's a place to be active 20 minutes once a day, but you can't be on LinkedIn and do nothing. It's just not worth it. It's not worth, there's no point being on it. So the other thing is, these are some comments that were made on a recent post of mine. It looks like it could have been it could have been the podcast post. Yeah, one of my podcast posts. So this one was from Carolyn Mumby. I've already connected to Carolyn. She's the CEO of Eladex. I haven't seen Carolyn for ages. Nice work, Nick. It's a labour of love producing podcasts. As you say, well worth it. Looking forward to listening tomorrow morning. Now, I hadn't spoken to Carolyn for ages. So if I wanted to, I'd look at that and go, Carolyn, who I haven't spoken to for ages, has re-engaged with a piece of content that I've written or shared or, repurposed. Is it worth me ringing her or getting in touch with her? Hi, Carolyn. Great to see that you thanks for your comments on my post. how are you doing? Anything I can work with you on, anything you're up to, any help you need, whatever it might be. You don't overly sell that. And then Sarah Hawthorne, I've heard great things, looking forward to listening. So Sarah supporting specialists in technical businesses with PR and marketing. I haven't seen Sarah for a long time. So she's engaged with a piece of content. Is that a potential for us to explore something? Only I would know, but it's validating the fact that my content is engaging with people I want it to engage with. So LinkedIn isn't the be all and end all for everything. You still need to contact people, you still need to network with people, you still need to call to people, you still need to do all the things you would do to build relationships. But it's one of those where if you get it right and you understand its power and you're quite strategic about how you use it, it's amazing what it'll bring back to you. Now, I had a very deliberate policy in March after lockdown was announced. So those who are not in the UK, our lockdown was announced from the 24th of March. And I remember the 24th of March, it was the day my business caved in on the top of me by thinking, you know, what am I going to do? I was a classroom training consultant going into businesses to sort problems out and going into classrooms to train people. I don't mind admitting, my first 3 days of lockdown, I watched Netflix. I thought, can I do Netflix in 3 days? I couldn't, but I watched Netflix for 3 days while my head just exploded. But then what I did is I absolutely engaged this push-pull mentality. I already had a long-established, good relationship built network of LinkedIn, but I made an active decision to push content and pull people towards me. Push content, pull people towards me. I don't think it's any accident whatsoever that since July, my diary has never, ever stopped. And 80% of my business is coming through LinkedIn. Now, you know, okay, 6,500 connections, long established, all that kind of stuff, but the principle's the same. I'm pushing content out there and I'm managing what happens to it, and I'm following what happens to it, and I'm looking at what people do. So that's kind of what it can do for you. It's like anything, it needs a bit of work, but it doesn't need to be obsessive either. You know, I go on LinkedIn as almost like my little, when I'm having breakfast in the morning, I'm just on LinkedIn. We don't have phones at the table, so it's quite good when we eat breakfast at different times in our house. So if I'm breakfast on my own, I just go on LinkedIn, 20 minutes, I've had a look, sorting my day out on LinkedIn. That's easy. I never use it much on my laptop. So I'm just going to say to you at the end of the slide deck, you've got, pardon me, my contact details. Those are hyperlinked, so you can go to my email, go to my website, and you can go to the Impact Sessions podcast. If you want to connect with me, you'll be able to just put Nick Bramley in LinkedIn, because apart from a plumber in Warrington who sells tiles, I think I'm the first Nick Bramley listed on LinkedIn. So that's it really. How are we doing for time?
We're doing fine. And Joanne has a question as well. Joanne,
away.
I don't know if you want to ask the question that you posed for Nick.
Yeah, I can do, yeah. So I actually did some LinkedIn training about a month ago, and I was told that any kind of content should be targeted at your one kind of sort of client type, and that anybody else who you might want to attract will kind of see the success that you're having, if you like, with that one type of client and follow. But because the types of clients that I'm trying to attract through my business is so kind of diverse, I wasn't really convinced that that was going to be the right strategy.
No, you're absolutely right. Whoever told you that was probably, well, what's the option? You can be right or wrong, and that wasn't right. I don't know who told you that. I don't know who's running a training course saying that. My podcast is a classic example, right? It's a business podcast for people in business. There's no defined audience. If you are interested in business or work in business, so that's millions of people. So if I was creating content, I wouldn't do a podcast, would I? I'm pushing the podcast out. I don't care who interacts with it. I think the fact is the podcast is seen as Nick Bramley with a podcast every Tuesday. That's what it's about, not, oh, I only want to interact with these 6 people and hopefully those 6 will give me 4 more. That's not true. Just content is content. the problem with LinkedIn, well, not the problem, the opportunity with LinkedIn is you cannot tell or you cannot make the audience interact with your content. Your content will find its way anywhere. I posted something the other day, right, on somebody's LinkedIn. They posted a picture. There was a little video, and there was a guy. He looked like he was in Asia or somewhere, working from home on his settee with his laptop, with two little toddlers, both pulling at each of his knees, surrounded by bits of cups of tea and a dog, and it was like, you know. Who said working from home was relaxing or something? It was a lovely little video, and I just commented about that looks like every office in the UK or something. Nothing. I've had like 97 people comment on my comment. I didn't do it for that. I don't know who these 97 people are, but occasionally it'll say someone's commented on your comment. What if someone in that comment was the most important person on my 2021 strategy? So you can't influence who's exactly going to watch and look at what you do. Yeah. The other thing I should say to you, by the way, is try and build a bit of momentum within a small group of people, because you can cheat the algorithm on LinkedIn. You'd think if you post, I don't know how Facebook works, I don't use it. If I post something on LinkedIn, you would think, wouldn't you, that everyone who's I'm connected to would see that. That's not how it works. LinkedIn releases that to a selective group. So let's say it's 10% of your connections. So I post something on LinkedIn tomorrow morning, 600 people will see it. And what LinkedIn's doing, it's looking with a little algorithm running going, is this content working? Is this content popular? So if I start getting some likes, comments and reshares, it'll go, go on then, and it'll release it. And it'll release it to other people. So what I'd say to you, I've got what I call a LinkedIn push group on WhatsApp. There's about 60 of us in it because we're all part of the business community. And we commit to saying, if someone posts a post on LinkedIn and puts a link in the WhatsApp group, if we've got time, we'll comment on it or like it or share it. So we're fooling LinkedIn. You know, I've commented on stuff that I'm not really interested in because it's helping someone in the group. Because when I post something, and I think LinkedIn gives you 90 minutes from a post going live to decide if it's going to go even bigger. It decides, not you. So there's ways of cheating that, you know, otherwise you think, I've done a really good post. It's only gone to 60 people. Actually, you want it to go to 6,000 people or 600,000. My best ever viewing numbers, by the way, was Captain Tom in the lockdown. And he just posted to me, said, the word legend is overused. I said, this guy is a genuine legend. When he raised 37 million quid for the NHS, I put a picture of Captain Tom and this little piece about legend. You know, I follow sports people who say they're legends. People think they're legends in business and politics. This guy's a genuine legend. It was just an observation. I was really sort of enamored by the guy. I thought he'd done a really good thing. What do you reckon? How many views do you think I got of that post? What do you reckon the view numbers could be of a post about Captain Tom, not to do with business, but me saying, that's about values, by the way. It's me saying I value someone who's doing some good stuff. So I was quite happy to be associating myself with a guy who became a national hero, not because I wanted to be associated with Captain Tom, but 1,000, that's good, Kaloo. Yeah, 1,000, no. Okay, 1,000 would be good, yeah. Any advice? We'll do a bit of higher, lower. Anybody want to guess on 1,000?
That's a million. It's a million, not 1,000.
No, right. So Kaloo, no, I would love that. No, right, you've spoilt the game now because anything I'm going to say is rubbish by comparison to a million, Kaloo. Thank you. It was 68,000. 68,000 people commented or liked or shared or whatever that post. My normal posts for business or podcasts, wherever it might be, get anywhere between 2,000, 4,000 potentially. And I'm delighted with that. Captain Tom, boom, 60-odd thousand. I posted something about Donald Trump recently. I got 48,000 with that as well. So, you know, just be careful. Thank you, Kaloo. I'm sorry. It's when you say a million, anything else is less than anything else is. I appreciate that, Kaloo. Thank you. Good sense of humour. So what I'm saying to you is hopefully that's giving you an insight into A, it's not scary. B, it's not personal. You don't have to protect yourself on there. It's not, you know, don't share things that you don't want to share. Two things I am is I'm sharing content I think is relevant, and occasionally I'm controversial. I don't mind that. Controversial gets me bigger viewings. I don't know why. I posted something about Donald Trump being a 4-year-old baby. I said, you learn at 4 that stamping your feet and saying I want something doesn't always get what you want. I posted a picture of Donald Trump, and that got like 40,000 views or something like that. But and I got death threats from people in America, which was quite interesting. So I didn't mind. It was controversial. But occasionally I'll throw something in controversially because I don't mind if people say, "Oh, Nick, that's the filters bit." I'm quite happy to say something occasionally on LinkedIn, but use it wisely. Don't overthink it and don't get too worried about it. So I'm going to end the recording. So we'll do that now. Thanks for contributions. Thanks for the questions. Hopefully you found that valuable.